All right, everyone, welcome to On Trial with Josh Lowry, where we put one issue at a time on trial. Today, this is kind of an emergency podcast. U.S. Senate just passed the big, beautiful bill, and I hate that I have to call it that. It sounds stupid, just like the bill is stupid. Now, since this is an emergency podcast, you're all going to have to bear with me here. As many of you know, I have 5 kids, all of which are home at the moment. I have 3 dogs, all of which are fighting at the moment. If you're watching this, you can see I'm outside because I don't have a studio. I don't have an office. I had one place that I worked, and we actually built that into a room so we could adopt our 5th child. But let's get to it. The big, beautiful bill. I have so many different ways that I want to talk about this because this bill, I think, says something deeply about America and not just the legislative process. I think it actually says something about who we are as a people, but also like why it's going to be so hard for us to fix a lot of the problems that we're facing. And you may hear it. I live in a place in Westfield where at least once every 15 minutes, somebody that's taking the muffler off their goddamn car flies through here. I grew up in the country in Martinsville, where you had a million guys that had trucks with loud mufflers, sounding like a damn shotgun all the time. It's surprising how often it happens in Westfield. I'm not exactly sure what the intended response is. I don't know if I'm now supposed to go like, "Oh, cool, dude," or they think women are just going to take their shirts off and throw it at them. I don't know, but goddamn, it's annoying. Big beautiful bill. So the Senate passed their version. It's now going to go back to the House, where the House can make changes on it before it goes to President Trump for signature. We have no reason to believe that the House is going to do anything to make it better. If anything, they can make it worse. But look, there's a couple big takeaways. And it actually makes you wonder why they are passing this bill. Because it hurts so many and helps so few. And on the one hand, it makes me think that Republicans have just realized they can do whatever they want. Voters will not penalize them. There is a group of voters that will vote Republican. I'm to the point where I actually think a Republican could be caught on camera beating a puppy and it wouldn't cost them a single vote with their base. There's then another group of people that no matter what happens, they're going to consume media that tells them that Republicans do everything right and everything that's wrong is because of a Democrat. I live in Indiana. We have a supermajority in our state house, a supermajority in our state senate. We have had a Republican governor for over 2 decades. And I live in an area, did you hear another one of the vehicles? And I live in an area where we've never even had a Democrat elected in the city. And yet I will find people that will say that something is wrong because there's a mayor that's a Democrat in Indianapolis. That's a big jump in logic, right? To always be able to blame a Democrat. But so back to my point about why the Republicans are doing this. I can't help but think part of this is the only thing they've ever wanted to do. And now they realize they can do whatever they want. And just think about this. If you were given the ability to do anything you want with the government, basically free pass, do you know like what Democrats would do? Like we're talking about paid family leave. We're talking about Medicare for all, maybe at least affordable health care for all. Like there are a lot of things we could do to make people's lives better. And when the Republicans have gotten in that situation where they could do whatever they want, their one response: cut taxes for the rich, kick people off of healthcare. And the numbers have varied. You've seen 10 million, you've seen 17 million. The number of people that are going to lose their healthcare because of this bill, it's a huge amount. But they're going to lose a huge amount. A huge amount of people are going to lose their health care. And yet the bill is still going to add trillions of dollars to the deficit, which tells you the Republicans weren't actually cutting the health care to be fiscally responsible. They don't care about being fiscally responsible. They've shown how many times they have to run up a deficit. They just wanted to take away health care from people. The cruelty is the point. They think certain people don't deserve it. And what's crazy, a lot of the people that are going to lose their health care are Republicans, and they'll probably still vote for them. So then are the Republican legislators actually getting this wrong? Or, like, if you get the response you want, maybe you're not doing anything wrong. Like, we always talk about, like, you touch a hot stove and it burns your hand. Like, we're kind of in a situation with a lot of the Republican base voters where they touch a hot stove and it burns their hand, and their response is to vote for the stove. I don't think that's a very good analogy, but you see where I'm getting at, right? But that says a lot to me, though, about that is what the Republicans did when they had carte blanche. I mean, what is the ultimate goal? Is it to get taxes to zero for the rich? I mean, Jeff Bezos just had a $50 million wedding. You're going to tell me he really needs a tax break? That's the thing about this. It does not make logical sense. Now, the Republicans are going to be able to spin it to make logical sense. I mean, look the way they celebrate. They just lie, right? Trump said nobody will be kicked off Medicaid. He just lied today and said gas is $1.98. It's not $1.98. Republicans will just lie and say this is good for people. And until we find a way to break through some of this right-wing media, they're going to just be able to keep lying to people. But that's my point. They've realized they can get away with anything. And this is what they wanted to get away with? Did you guys ever have to read The Great Gatsby in school? Like, The Great Gatsby really kind of hit a lot of topics, but the big takeaway was about the 1920s and how the rich don't care about anyone else, and that they live a lifestyle that is free of consequences in a lot of cases. And it's kind of this realization that there is this worship of these people that maybe don't deserve it. And I feel like The Great Gatsby was supposed to teach us a lesson, but the Republicans took The Great Gatsby and said, hey, this should be how we make policy. You know, the writer, F. Scott Fitzgerald, apparently died thinking he was a loser. Like, The Great Gatsby became famous after he died. I was going to say, do you know how bad that would suck? But does he know how bad it sucks? Back to the big, beautiful bill. Let's talk about some of the actual consequences. We've now talked about why the legislators are doing it, and I really don't fully understand why. I mean, I guess I do. Maybe I just don't want to accept why, right? Like, maybe I just don't want to accept that there is a group of people out there that want other people to go without health care and want to see the rich get richer. It is something that is done by a group of politicians that professes their Christianity publicly over and over again. I can tell you that's not what Jesus would have done. The irony of the Republicans that are passing the big, beautiful bill to cut taxes for the rich by cutting health care for the poor do it, and they rely on quoting Jesus all the time to push their policies. Jesus would not be supporting you. You'd be sitting at the table. He'd be flipping. So we have to reckon with why this is what they want to do, okay? And it just sucks, right? I'm going to be honest with you guys. It just sucks. There's no other way to think about it than to think there are people out there that want others to not have health care, that want others to not have food, that want others to struggle. I guess I would just raise completely differently. All right, that's enough about the legislators. Let's talk about some of the actual effects. The big, beautiful bill is going to kick anywhere from 10 to 17 million people off of their health care. In a crazy way, the Republicans finally found a way to overturn Obamacare. They may not overturn it, but if the large result from Obamacare was that more people had health care, they're changing that. So look, there's a lot of negative effects of this bill, and I definitely want to talk about some of them. I posted about this today, and it's much easier to read. Yeah, this is crazy. So looking at what this bill does, big, beautiful bill, is cruel. This Republican bill will kill rural Americans. This Republican bill will starve children. This Republican bill will take middle-class families and put them into poverty. This middle-class bill is anything but a middle-class bill, no matter how many times they say it. This Republican bill will increase your rent and mortgage. This Republican bill will cut aid to aging Americans. This Republican bill will increase your grocery prices. This Republican bill will cut aid to people with disabilities. This Republican bill will increase your electricity costs. Also, they can give a tax cut to Jeff Bezos so he can spend more money on his third wedding. So, look, I don't think I have to overstress how bad this bill is, because a lot of people are going to do that. And we're going to see a lot of it. Now, I think the unfortunate part is I don't know that the Republicans are going to have to deal with the political fallout from this, because like they're just going to lie, right? Like some of these things don't take effect till 2026 or 2027. And so then they'll just say it was a Democrat's fault. But that's up to us to try to make sure people remember. So here is the third part that I really want to talk about, the big, beautiful bill. And I felt like this is more the part I'm going to put on trial, right? Why do Americans support this so much? Because here's the thing. I understand the Republicans right now lie to their voters more than any politicians ever in the history of the world, right? But Republicans have been pretty consistent about a couple of things. One, they want to cut tax on the rich. I mean, you can ask any voter what Republicans want to do about taxes, and that's what they would say. That's my dog's barking. So you have the fact that every voter knows Republicans want to cut taxes on the rich, okay? You have the fact that Republicans have been very open about wanting to cut entitlements, and especially Medicaid, for years. I understand Trump has lied recently, but consistently over the last 30, 40 years, Republicans have wanted to cut Medicaid. So that leads me to believe a large chunk of voters do want this. And I understand a lot of people are going to say they aren't getting what they told you guys. This was going to be a mess with the kids and the dogs. Okay. So you have a bunch of voters. So the Republicans have been very vocal about the fact that they want to cut entitlements and that they want to cut taxes on the rich for decades, right? Which leads us to three conclusions on how voters view this. Obviously, those diehard Republicans that vote every time for this, that is what they want. I mean, that is like the basis of the Republican Party, right? Cutting taxes on the rich, cutting entitlements for the poor. Like if that's just like the basic 101 Republican. And so you have a group of voters that always vote Republican. That means they accept that, they want that. But there's a whole other group that voted recently, aren't actually Republicans, but they vote that way recently. I mean, I think the numbers show that there are 5 million people that voted for Biden in 2020 and voted for Trump in 2024. So when I'm thinking about those people, I'm thinking about those voters, it kind of leads you to the conclusion that mixed with the Republicans, there's just a group of people that just want this. They want the richest tax to go down. And if it means they lose their health care, they're okay with it. I think all the time we talk about somebody voting against their self-interest, and our problem there is we're deciding what we think someone else's top self-interest is. But like having health insurance is a pretty integral part of your life. So if someone is choosing to vote to take away their own health care, maybe we just need to accept that there are people out there that to them, they're so dead set against the government providing health care, they're willing to lose theirs. Maybe there's some people that want to keep their health care, but it's more important to them that Elon Musk has another tax cut. And I know it sounds like I'm being facetious, but I'm not, right? The second conclusion we could come to is that Republicans lie to their voters. They say they're not going to cut Medicaid. They're not going to, kick people off their health care, and then they do it anyways. And that may be what happened with some voters that voted Republican and are now shocked that their Medicaid is being cut. But like that's also basically not expecting anything of voters, right? You're saying that that voters heard Republicans for 50 plus years say we want to cut taxes for the riches and cut Medicaid. And then one time a Republican said, we're not going to cut Medicaid. And they're like, oh, I believe him now. So were there some of them that were lied to? Well, I guess all of them were lied to. The Republicans lied to all the voters. But are there some that accepted the lies? Yes. But there were another group that had to have known this was going to happen. And I need you to dispel yourself of the idea that it's only rich people that voted for this that don't want other people to have Medicaid. Look at the numbers, guys. A huge chunk of the people that will lose their health care insurance over the next 5 years because of the big, beautiful bill, a huge chunk, millions, are Republicans. That means they voted specifically for these politicians that are now taking away their health care. But there's something else that's underlying all of this. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it until I saw the Jeff Bezos wedding. And that brings me to my third conclusion about voters. And is it possible there's just a group of voters that truly wants the Gilded Ages? They look at Jeff Bezos having his absurdly extravagant wedding. At the same time, Amazon is not paying its employees enough. They're getting in trouble with the Department of Labor. And they're fighting against unions. Like, I think we need to be more realistic about what we're saying. Jeff Bezos fights against paying his employees more so that he can have a $50 million wedding. Those two things are directly related. But look at the way a lot of voters talk about Elon Musk. Look at the way a lot of voters talk about Jeff Bezos. Look at the way a lot of voters talk about Donald Trump. I've said for years, I feel like we have an unhealthy culture of billionaire worship in America. And I think when I say that, some people think that that's like an attack on billionaires. Here's the thing. I don't really give a shit if you're a billionaire or not. You could be a billionaire, be a good person. You can be a billionaire, be a bad person. There are billionaires that have invested their money and time into making some of the greatest advances for humanity, and there are billionaires that have used their time and money to do nothing but fuck other people over. Kind of like roid rage. I have not done it myself. Don't jump to conclusions. But everything I always saw didn't give you anger issues if you didn't have it. And I think the same is kind of true of money. I think if you'd given Mother Teresa billions of dollars, she's still been a great person and done good. Try to help people. I think you can look at someone like Elon Musk and say, oh, some people are going to use their money for nothing other than to gain more money. He bought the presidential election for Trump so that he could then have his Doge to go in and cut all the regulations and oversight on his companies so he can make more money. He wants to be the first trillionaire. That's why he did all this stuff. But see, I say that negatively. I think there's a large group of Americans that want there to be two separate classes in this world. Want there to be the uber rich that live on yachts and the other people that struggle. Want there to be people that lose their health care so that Jeff Bezos can have a $75 million wedding. We can't deny that people were interested in that absurd wedding. I think that says something about us. At the same time that people are willing to vote to take away their own health care, glued to the TV watching about this $50 million wedding. And see, we have to, like, as much as I want to be dismissive of that whole theory, I also, like, we have to be open and honest about what we're talking about here. Because, like think about movies, right? Like, there are some movies that make a ton of money and they're not good movies. And then we're like, well, that was a bad movie. Okay, but a lot of people liked it. I mean, there was always this thing about people would talk shit about Nickelback. Oh, you like... Well, apparently everybody hates Nickelback, and yet they sold out arenas all over the world. So, like, if we're going to accept the truth there, we also have to accept the truth that there's a lot of Americans that want billionaires to be richer. And I used to think it was because they thought, oh, well, eventually I'll be a billionaire, and so I want things to be a certain way for me. But I don't think that. I think most of us understand we're not going to be billionaires, right? And it's not me trying to be a pessimistic person. That's me doing math. So look, when it comes to the big, beautiful bill, I think there's a couple of takeaways other than the just devastation that's going to happen, right? One, Republicans have realized they can do and say whatever they want, and their voters will accept it. But that might be because they can twist everything to their voters. I talked about it earlier in the podcast, and honestly, it's something I go back and forth on myself. Are there some MAGA voters out there that want to see other people suffer? Yeah. But I just have a hard time believing that's 79 million people of America. think it's much more likely that the Republicans just lie to them and mislead them. But you can only lie and mislead so much. At a certain point, and this is another takeaway from the big, beautiful bill, there are a certain amount of people that want this. And the one that's always going to really wrap my mind around is the people that want this, that are the ones that are going to lose their health care. And I just don't think, did you hear that? This podcast has been less than half an hour. That's the third time you've heard that. Westfield, Indiana. We're supposed to be like the model suburb that's changing. That's how suburbs are. Well, apparently suburbs have a bunch of dudes that are trying to impress themselves. The point for all the people that want there to be tax cuts for the rich, that want people to lose their health care insurance, and in some cases want to lose their own health care insurance. I don't think it's a coincidence that it happened the same week that Jeff Bezos threw a $50 million wedding, and it was the cover of every website, magazine, newspaper. If you've listened to this podcast, you've heard me say there are a couple through lines. One of them is just a lack of empathy in America. Two, it's a shocking willingness for politicians to lie to their voters. And maybe we're coming on to a third one. I'm not saying I have it all figured out. What I'm saying is I think there's a group of people that read The Great Gatsby, and instead of taking that as a warning or as a cautionary tale, they read that book or they watch that movie and they go, damn, I wish that's the way life was. All right, this has been an emergency episode. A big, beautiful bill has passed the Senate. Going back to the House, it's probably going to get signed into law, guys. We have a lot of hard work to do to fight back, because it feels like a never-ending war. We make advances and people getting access to health care, and then Republicans try to rip it away. But you know what? As long as that's what the American voter keeps doing, then I guess we're going to have to keep fighting, because I'm sorry, as someone I'm very passionate about, we're the richest nation in the history of the world. Health care is a right. It should be accessible and affordable to every American. And if every 5 to 10 years Republicans are able to convince enough voters that it should be taken away from some people, and every 5 to 10 years we're going to have to ante up, hop back on a horse, and fight back and get the health care back. Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of On Trial with Josh Lowry. Please subscribe, like, post positive reviews. I appreciate your guys' support, and I will see you next time.